Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today I'm going to be showing you guys some of my favorite shortcuts and cheats into making art faster, easier, and better looking. This first step doesn't actually really count as a cheat or a hack, but it is something that I would like to remind you, mainly digital artists. A lot of the time, you don't really remember how useful it can be to just scratch out some quick poses and compositions on actual paper before you jump into digital. I've been using almost exclusively digital for a long time now, but for some reason with composition and posing, it's way harder for me to get that figured out on that bright white, digital file. It just stresses me out for some reason, so it's kind of just a tip to try out if you're ever having trouble like getting your drawing started. Not really a hack per se, but I thought I'd mention it since I did that for this image. The next thing I really want to talk about, and this is the first cheat of the video, it might even be kind of controversial because I know some people don't like using this tool in this way, but I think that the transform tool is one of the most underrated tools in any drawing program. Almost every drawing program has a transform tool, but a lot of people only use it to shift their drawing away from the edges of the canvas, or occasionally to resize something if it's slightly too big or too small. But I think that the transform tool is actually so versatile, and you can do some really interesting things with it that I think make art so much easier and so much more forgiving. So just to show you the versatility of this particular tool, first of all, I just wanted to draw this basic figure, and when you select your area that you want to transform, you can actually move this little crosshair in the middle. It's called the anchor point, and that's where it's going to rotate from. So if you move that anchor point onto the joints of this figure, obviously your sketch would probably be a little more elaborate than this one, you can basically move your character like they're a doll, and you can really adjust the pose lots and lots of times. If you're doing this during the sketch, before the inking stage, which I highly recommend, by the way, most of your transforming should be done before the inking starts, so that you can make it kind of messy and it still is okay. You can basically pose them however you want. You can experiment a ton, and as long as you're keeping all connected pieces as the part that you're transforming, you can really play around with it a lot, and it's really forgiving when you're on the sketch stage to do this, because obviously you can just ink around whatever weird overlaps you're going to run into. So I made this little dancing figure to show you guys that. So I'm going to incorporate all these techniques I'm talking about into this particular illustration throughout, but I'm also going to add in some examples like I just did that are a little uglier but a little more clear about what I'm doing. The other thing I wanted to say about just the transform tool before we switch off of that, with the transform tool and adjusting certain proportions, you can actually make an image into essentially a whole different style. Basically, I'm just promoting the transform tool at this point, but yeah, if you change the proportions of the eyes, nose, mouth, and the body to the head ratio, you can make a completely different image. Now, not that this would actually be helpful to do so literally, but if you find that your drawing is looking a little chibi-ish and you meant for it to be a little more realistic, don't panic and throw the whole drawing away. You can literally transform your way around it. The next thing I want to suggest as a cheat or a shortcut is copy pasting and Frankensteining your own sketches. Now I know this is controversial. There are some people who think that it's really bad form to if you're having trouble with the other eye, to take the eye that you drew that you think is good and copy paste and flip horizontal it. But in my experience, if you do this during the sketch phase and you're willing to mess around with the sort of angle and proportions of that other eye, this is actually a really effective way to get past that struggle that you're having. So just to kind of show you what I mean, I'm going to draw a girl with one eye that's kind of exactly the way I want it to look, and then I'm going to try to freehand the other eye and see how close I can get it. It's a relatively straight on picture, so they should be roughly the same, and then I'm going to use my copy pasting trick, which will always be faster even if you have to mess around with it a little bit, and we'll just sort of compare which one looks less wonky. I promise I actually did try eye on her other eye. I mean, I didn't sketch it, but you can see how like droopy it is compared to the other one. It can just really help, and it's a great shortcut. I highly recommend using it if you're tight on time or if you're having a particularly hard time with it. So I use that in this piece just to sort of show it in actual action. And like I said, I recommend actually doing this in the sketch phase and then inking it, inking them separately just so that it doesn't look too copy pasted. The other thing that I want to talk about, which can really help save time, and I don't think a lot of people do this, is like setting up all your layers beforehand. So my layers that I like to set up are a sketch layer, a mask layer, and then a shade and color layer, both of which are clipping mask to the mask. And then an ink layer over that, and then an ink colors layer clipped onto that. You can have different layers, of course, but I just find that this sort of set of layers, when they're preset out for me when I start the image, it really is nice. It like helps me not have to like stop and start to like reach over to my keyboard, over my tablet, and like type in the name of the new layer, or it stops me from like adding a bunch of layers and not naming them. It's just more organized, I find, to like set out your most likely to be used layers already with like, are they going to be normal or multiply? Like the shade layer is already set to multiply, it's already clipped to the mask layer. I just find that saves a lot of time. What I also did right here was I did a little like spirally line for this vine, and then I just copy pasted it and moved it slightly over to give it an actual like 3D effect. Well, not a 3D effect, like showing that it's a vine and not just a line. That's another thing that can really speed things up and make it a lot quicker. And I'm going to be doing some more like copy pasting here down at the feet. So I wanted this image to have like tons and tons of foliage. I'm actually hiding something in the foliage, so it has to be relatively like lush and full. And this can take a long time. Like these kind of details can really add up. So I ended up just again copy pasting over to the other side. Now if you're determined to make it look really obviously like you didn't do this, you can do this rather than just like in one piece. Take little elements, like maybe you take like a third of the foliage from the other side and like place it a little differently. But I didn't mind actually like just flipping it one right over the other, especially because her little watering can is covering up some of the most obvious leaves. I feel like these kind of shortcuts can rub some artists the wrong way, especially like artists who really feel like the work is defined by how difficult it was to make. But for me personally, after art school, I have been really valuing efficiency, and especially because I actually kind of like the symmetry that comes out of occasionally stealing from within my own artwork. It's something that I generally recommend. This next trick is about color, and it's so simple. I just can't believe that I never really used to do this, especially in my assignments. Color selection is actually like a lot harder than I think a lot of people give it credit for, especially non-artists. It is so easy to make an ugly, garish color palette and like not realize that it's not going your way until way too late in the image, and then you gotta start all over. So this is basically just me showing you how if you set down a layer of color and then take your brush, turn it down to like opacity 50, and then put whatever colors you were planning on coloring it with over top of this one unifying color, you can come up with a super harmonious color palette, and it's so easy and so nice. You can also, another way to like limit this is to take out your like actual real life pens and like Copic markers or Posca pens or whatever you have. Chances are, because of like budgetary reasons, you don't have like a zillion of them, unlike in digital where you have literally every color that your art program can simulate for you. And this can also help like limit your color palette, but I really think that the best method is this method where you basically plant your color palette on top at a lower opacity on top of like one unifying color. I'm going to use this like mossy green color here because I thought it would look nice with all the plants, and it's not going to be obvious at first, but as you start to add in all your colors, you're going to find that like everything just looks kind of soft, and like all these colors look really good together. It's because of that unifying color underneath. Now you can also actually do this like in your image. Like you could put a, you know, that unifying color underneath your line art, and then color in a lower opacity layer on top of that, and that'll have roughly the same effect, though that does make it so that your flat layer has to be at a lower opacity for it to work, and that can run into issues later on, but you know, both methods work fine. I prefer it off to the side, but it's really up to you what you like. And another thing that I highly recommend, this is something that I did not do until so late in my art career, and it's frankly embarrassing because I've been doing digital art for like 100 years, it feels like, but make sure to use your masks. Masks are basically just like when you fill in an area with color, and then if you put a like clipping mask over top of that, then it's only going to color in that area that's been colored in the layer below. So basically just select all of the like outside silhouette of your line art of your character, and then go into select and select inverse, and then fill that whole area with like white or whatever color you want, and then all of your like coloring and shading after that will be stuck within the bounds of your line art. It makes everything so much easier and like a lot more natural feeling to draw in, I feel like. This is sort of a lazy hack versus making like a custom brush. Sometimes you don't want to spend the time making an actual custom brush. You just want a little bit of texture that doesn't look like it's, you know, made in a computer, like a hand-drawn nice texture, but you don't want to spend all day hatching this texture into your character. So what I recommend is make a little square of the texture that you want. Obviously draw it by hand, draw it yourself, and then copy paste it into this sort of quilt, and basically you can make the texture that you want look just as like beautifully hand-drawn right by you, you know, fits perfectly in your style, and then overlay it, and it's just that easy. My last tip for speeding up art is one of the most crucial things when it comes to digital art, and so many people neglect this or underutilize this, and that is keyboard shortcuts. Now you guys know that Command Z saves a ton of time. You know, you wouldn't want to click into your like file or edit undo every single time you had to undo. That would be insane. The same is true for a lot of other things. Most artists only learn Command Z and maybe like one other keyboard shortcut. You should have a shortcut to pull up your like pen tool, your fill tool, your eraser, especially if your pen doesn't have one like built in. You should have tons of keyboard shortcuts, because once you learn them, it makes things so much faster and so much easier. And the sponsor for today's video is actually related to keyboard shortcuts, so I'm going to just jump over to that. Today's video is sponsored by TourBox. TourBox is a really cool device that allows you to use all your favorite keyboard shortcuts with a single hand. TourBox is designed for people using it with their left hand, but since I'm left-handed myself, I'll be using it with my right. You combine sets of shortcuts that individually link to a wide range of software, so that once you set everything up, you don't have to mess with it when you switch between programs. The buttons and dials are also nice and distinct, so learning to use it is quick and intuitive. I personally use tons of keyboard shortcuts, my favorites being ones that switch between the tools I use a lot, like the fill and the pen tool, and of course commands like undo are absolutely mandatory, but no matter how used to typing them into your keyboard you are, you often have to set down your pen and halt the drawing process to do it, which over time can significantly slow you down. TourBox makes it so that you can rapidly use your shortcuts without ever setting down your pen. I really love the feel of the controller as well. It has a nice weight to it, and the like body part of it is like kind of velvety. I don't know, it's a really nice feeling. The buttons are also really clicky and satisfying, which I really like. It's very like tactile. If you guys want to check out the TourBox for yourself, check out the link in the description box, and thank you so much to TourBox for supporting the channel. Hey, thank you so much for sticking around to the bitter end of the video. I really hope this was helpful. It was kind of a weird like video idea. I just wanted to sort of compile all of the tips and like cheats and shortcuts that had helped me out the most over the years. I hope you guys are doing really well, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my patrons, including Munch Munch McGee, Jess Hranick, Dude What, Matilda Minchin, Golden Castles, Azarad Clazel, Snoodles, Al Kappa, Winkus Wonkus, Aki, Blue, Zero Expectations, Wulu Luna, Lilia Lurd, Hazel Tiffia, Elizabeth Ward, The Expressive Poker Face, Morrissey Axolotl, Chris Draw, Subaki, Juliana Davis, Yumi Lily, Snow White, The Becky, Liliana Hammond, Mia Lavalley, Angel File, Q Musgrove, Nicole Ludwig, Nicolette Queen, Rainwater Pearls, Ice Cream Pal, Best Kaiju, Lion, Storm Scribbles, Tom David Johansson, Ivan Rodriguez, Ilaria Louie, Nora Cornelison, Joseph Copel, Colin Loriano, Dr. Casket, Your Boy ST, JJ Jade, and of course, Lip 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 Lip.